but the others haven't been consulted, and I think this is going to create yet another mess. And in good French, we would say, whoa. There will be another 3 minutes for questions and comments to the member when the debate resumes.
Déclaration de député, la députée de Laurentides de Laval.
The honourable member for Laurentides de Laval.
A few hours ago that one of the most interesting people that I've ever met passed away suddenly during the night. Journalist, storyteller, war correspondent, constituent and friend Paul William Roberts is known for his coverage of the two Iraq wars for Harper's Magazine, as well as his many books including Empire of the Soul, Journey of the Magi, and A War Against Truth. Born in Wales, his career spanned the world, having studied in England and taught in India before working as a producer for both the BBC and the CBC, among others. In 2005, he was the inaugural winner of the PEN Canada Paul Kidd Award for Courage in Journalism. A humble man, Paul suffered the effects of the many wars he had covered, and about a decade ago he lost the ability to see. He was felled by a sudden brain hemorrhage last night and was transferred to Sacré-Cœur Hospital in Montreal early this morning to offer his organs for transplant. It should encourage all of us to know that his enormous heart will live on. To his wife, Cara, and to his kids, my deepest condolences. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Mr. Speaker, for over 40 years, JDRF, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, has been a global leader in the search for an end to type 1 diabetes through both research funding and advocacy. One of those helping achieve this goal of a cure is JDRF Edmonton Youth Ambassador Ava Sexton. I had the fortune of meeting Ava, her sisters, and her mom at my office recently. Ava's an absolute dynamo, and when she's not cheerleading or running, she's educating people in Edmonton on type 1 diabetes, sometimes speaking to crowds well over 100, despite being just 9 years old. Ava states, "A cure for me would mean no more finger pokes, no more having to treat lows and highs, and no more having to sit out my activities." Ava, you are an absolute inspiration. I know against you, type 1 diabetes doesn't have a chance. It's because of people like Ava that Edmonton is known as a city of champions.
The honourable member for New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to remember a great man from my riding, James Stewart, also known as Grandad Jim. Jim was born in Glasgow, Scotland, and trained in Canada as a Royal Air Force pilot. Jim was a catafighter. Catafighters flew one-way missions since there was nowhere for them to land. For his brave actions during the war, Jim was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, the 1939 to 1945 Star, the Atlantic Star and Bar, the France and Germany Star, the Defense Medal, and the Imperial War Medal. Jim never saw himself as a hero because he was one of the lucky ones that came home. Following the war, Jim emigrated to St. Andrews, New Brunswick. Jim was a pillar of all of our communities. He would volunteer to read to elementary school children and deliver Meals on Wheels. For his many contributions to our country, Jim was awarded the Order of New Brunswick and the Governor General's Caring Canadian Award. Mr. Speaker, Grandad Jim was a kind man who gave the best of himself to others. He will be well remembered. My deepest appreciation to Jim's family for sharing him with all of us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Esquimalt Saanich Sioux.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the 15th annual International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. This day calls for an end to discrimination, hate, and violence that still faces our communities. In Canada, discrimination still makes life challenging and unsafe for LGBTQ Canadians, especially when discrimination is compounded by racism, colonialism, and economic inequality. We know that trans and gender diverse people still face barriers in obtaining equal access to health services, including gender confirmation surgery, gender-affirming identity documents, and equal access to housing and employment. More than 70 countries still enforce homophobic and transphobic criminal sanctions. 7 have the death penalty. Many more countries remain unsafe for us. Once again, New Democrats call on the government to create a path to safety for those LGBTQ2 refugees who have no choice but to flee their homes. Let's make sure they can find a path to safety here in Canada.
The honourable member for Pickering-Uxbridge.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak about an incredible place in my riding that encourages my constituents to embrace their ingenuity, creativity, the Pickering Public Library. I recently had the pleasure of visiting the Pickering Library with the Prime Minister, and we were able to see the state-of-the-art technology and services provided to residents through their makerspace. And it's in this space that Pickering resident Humail Chowdhury, an engineering student at UOIT, first began 3D printing. With these new skills, Humail, alongside his co-inventor Salman Khan, won the Microsoft's Imagine Cup with their invention of the Smart Arm. The Smart Arm aims to be priced at less than $1,000, helping change the lives of an estimated 1 million hand amputees. Humail was able to demonstrate this technology to the Prime Minister during his visit. I look forward to seeing what future creations will stem from the Pickering Library's makerspace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kitchener-Conestoga.
Mr. Speaker, recently I had the honour of presenting the Sovereign's Medal to local Scout Captain Brian Sainer of Elmira. The Sovereign's Medal for Volunteers is awarded by the Governor-General to Canadians in recognition of their extraordinary contributions to their communities. I can think of no one who deserved this award more than Brian. On the occasion of Canada's 150th birthday, I was also honoured to award Brian one of Kitchener-Conestoga's Canada 150 Awards, medals given to 150 constituents of Kitchener-Conestoga who have made a positive contribution to our community. Since 1970, for almost 50 years, Brian Sainer has been involved in the 1st Elmira Scouts, and for the last 10 years, he has served as commissioner. Working with young people, instilling important life lessons, sharing his love of the outdoors and the environment have motivated Brian's selfless service. Without Brian's influence, the Elmira Scouts would not be who they are today. It is people like Brian that make our community the very best in Canada. Thank you, Brian.
The honourable member for Hull-Aylmer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On May 13th, the members of the Board of Directors of Dépanneurs Sylvestre received the Medal of the Lieutenant Governor of Quebec for exceptional merit. Dépanneurs Sylvestre has been in operation for 17 years and has served up more than 10,000 dinners and brunches. For this grassroots initiative, inclusion and unconditional welcome are core values. It's a place of self-help where people come together for many activities like vegetarian community meals, shows with local artisans, workshops, and conferences. I'd like to thank the members of the Board of Directors as well as all staff and volunteers for their dedication. I join the entire Hull-Aylmer community in congratulating you on this great success. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Oakville North Burlington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week marks Kids Help Phone's 30th anniversary. Over the course of 3 decades, their counselors have responded to more than 10 million Canadian youth in need of support. In 1989, the founders of Kids Help Phone mortgaged their homes to create this service. That risk has been rewarded many times over through the thousands of young lives they have saved. As the times have changed, they've added more services. Today, kids who need help are able to call, text, or chat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And while technologies have changed, Kids Help Phone's mission has stayed the same. They promise all of our kids that they will always be there for them. No matter what it is they need to talk about, Kids Help Phone is there to listen. Regardless of time or day, there is always a warm body on the other end offering confidentiality, no judgment, and a space where they can start feeling better. Kids Help Phone is working towards a country where there will be no wrong door for children who are trying to access mental health services. And I, for one, Mr. Speaker, think we should do everything we can to help.
Honourable member for Calgary Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, the history books will not be kind to this Prime Minister, who has played a shell game with Canadians. 4 long, failure-prone years of broken promises, frequent scandals, and controversy has Canadians realizing the Prime Minister sold them a bill of goods. That's right. Where are the sunny ways and transparency the Prime Minister promised to bring to government? It certainly wasn't on display in the corrupt dealings that brought us the SNC Lavalin and Vice Admiral Norman affairs. That's right. Where's the balanced budget promised Canadians by 2019? Still more than 20 years distant, according to the Finance Department, as this tax and spend government continues to sink future generations into debt. Mr. Speaker, there is no lack of examples that the Prime Minister played a cynical bait and switch on Canadians 4 years ago in his bid for power. The good news is Canadians have a chance just a few months from now to say no more to a Liberal Prime Minister who is definitely not as advertised.
The honourable member for Avignon-La-Métis, Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to highlight an extraordinary initiative by Cheminots de Saint-Rémy Elementary School in Price. More than a year ago, teacher Geneviève Giguère was looking for a way to motivate young people and get them excited about school. As a former student of the Conservatory of Music, Mrs. Giguère suggested to the principal that the school offer guitar lessons. The school enthusiastically climbed on board. And its mission accomplished. The results are clear. On Monday here on Parliament Hill, the group revealed that it won gold at Music Fest Canada, which was held in Ottawa. And that's not all. It also won gold at Music Fest Quebec in Montreal. I had the opportunity to meet and greet these students, and I could see the fire in their eyes, the sense of belonging and the pride in being part of this group. I'd like to thank and congratulate Geneviève Giguère and the school administration. Your willingness to innovate for the benefit of education sets a great example. And congratulations to the students on your achievement. Keep up the fun.
Mr. Speaker, after 150 years, Kings Mills Department Store closed its doors in downtown London. Everyone who shopped at the beautiful store fondly remembers riding on the old-fashioned, manually operated elevator. They also remember the man at the helm of the store, Fred Kingsmill, who died this week at the age of 90. I last had the opportunity to speak to this great businessman a couple of months ago. He had a smile that would light up a room and knew how important it was to give back to the community. Fred was the president of Kings Mills for 33 years and was the fourth generation to own and operate this historic department store. Fred was a farmer, a businessman, a philanthropist, and a true gentleman. Two of his favorite sayings were, "Be of good cheer," and "Do well, doubt not." Fred, London will miss you dearly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Barrie Innisfil.
On this day in 2006, Captain Nicola Goddard was killed in Afghanistan. During the war, Canadians would gather along the Highway of Heroes as fallen soldiers made their final journey home. This public demonstration of pride in our forces was overwhelming. Veterans, their families, and Canadians have been waiting for the Afghan memorial that was originally built in Kandahar to be displayed publicly, where we can all, as a grateful nation, remember their sacrifice. A working group in 2011 considered sanctity to be the most important aspect of the memorial, followed by visibility and accessibility. The opposite has happened. We've learned that this government has chosen to hide the memorial behind closed doors at DND headquarters. There was a secret dedication service that no one knew about until it was posted on Facebook 3 days after it happened. Not even family members of the fallen were invited. Instead of being placed proudly in a public area, family members and the public will have to request an appointment. This is shameful. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Veterans Affairs, Minister of Defense, a veteran himself, must reverse this decision. Veterans and their families of the fallen deserve so much more than this government is giving them.
Honourable member for Spadina, Fort York.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to bring attention to a very important initiative. Today marks the first day of Face Equality Week, a campaign to raise public awareness on the issue of facial discrimination. People with facial differences want us to know that they have value. They deserve our respect. About Face is the Canadian organization that's leading this cause, and they'll mark May 17th to 24th by addressing issues of bullying, focusing on education, employment discrimination, media bias. For example, a vital step in the recovery of burn survivors is accepting their changed appearance and gaining confidence in social situations. Let us take this time to pay attention to the difficulties experienced by burn survivors and others whose faces have their own beauty. Let's pledge to make our communities more welcoming and to celebrate the diversity of our differences, and let's take on this challenge face on.
Honourable member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge 16-year-old Sierra Robinson and the Cowichan Valley chapter of the Earth Guardians, who are organizing a youth climate strike for action in my riding today. An environmental consciousness is awakening in Canada's youth, who are increasingly looking at the threat of climate change and to their future on this planet. Human-caused greenhouse gas emissions are warming our planet, and our current trend will see us arrive at an increase of between 3 and 5 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. The ecological and economic consequences of this warming will dwarf anything and everything humans have ever faced during our time on Earth. Unfortunately, our federal government, through its continued subsidies to oil and gas and its purchase of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, is not meeting the expectations of our youth. We have the skills, the technology, and the know-how to make a transition to the renewable energy economy of the future. We just need the political will to make it happen.
Member for Bow River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Brooks Bandits hockey team promised a winning season. They set a record for wins, no losses home. They're playing for the Canadian Junior A Championship this weekend in the city of Brooks. But, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised openness and transparency, but he delivered the opposite. He shut down 2 committee investigations trying to cover up his political interference in SNC Lavalin. His government's shameful handling of Mark Norman case is just the latest proof that these are the same old scandal-ridden, entitled Liberals. The Prime Minister promised to make life more affordable for the middle class. What a joke. He has hiked taxes at every opportunity to pay for his out-of-control spending. He's putting a tax on everything with his carbon tax and a GST tax on top of the carbon tax. Oh, it's a scam. It's not an environmental plan. The Prime Minister promised near collaboration with provinces and territories, but now he's fighting them in court over his carbon tax. The list of broken promises goes on, Mr. Speaker. Canadian buyers have had enough. They've had buyer's remorse. This Prime Minister is not as advertised.
Member for Glengarry, Prescott Russell.
Mr. Speaker, almost a year ago in Ontario, there was a Conservative ad that said, "Don't be afraid, there will be a French university in Ontario." They told parents of autistic children to be confident that there would be solutions forthcoming, and they were told that there would be more good news. What a horror film.
Ford's best friend and his Conservatives. They told us a price on pollution would increase the unemployment rate. Have a little faith, said we. 100,000 more jobs in a month surely shuts down that debate. They told us don't invest in infrastructure. It's bad for the future. Have no fear, 1 million more jobs and the lowest unemployment rate in 40 years. What Doug Ford's best friends and his Conservatives don't realize is that our policies are having a positive impact in people's lives, and they're much more better than advertised.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, despite this House seeing it fit to apologize to Vice Admiral Norman, the Liberals on the Defence Committee refused to invite him to tell his story. Today, the Globe and Mail is reporting that the Prime Minister is the one who angrily launched the RCMP investigation that identified Mark Norman. The charge against Vice Admiral Norman has been stayed. The judge said he is a free man, but the Liberals won't let him talk. Why are these Liberals doing the Prime Minister's dirty work? What are they trying to cover up?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows full well that the committee works independently of the government. I know it's difficult for them to understand, Mr. Speaker, because under their government, we know perfectly well who controlled the committees. Mr. Speaker, in terms of the process regarding Vice Admiral Norman and the Public Prosecution Service of Canada, they said that no outside factors were taken into consideration. There was no outside influence either on the PPSC, including political interference in the decision to lay charges and the decision to stay the prosecution. And any statement to the contrary is absurd.
Eastman.
Well, it sounds like the Liberal cover-up goes on. Mr. Speaker, Vice Admiral Mark Norman served this country with honor and distinction for 30 years. Yet these Liberals won't even give him 30 seconds at one committee meeting to tell his story. They're covering up and protecting the Prime Minister and his involvement in this matter. The Globe and Mail revealed today that the Prime Minister is the one who demanded the investigation. Why would the Prime Minister think it's appropriate to politically direct an RCMP investigation?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the member seems to be dumbfounded that as the head of a government, the Prime Minister would be concerned about leaks of cabinet confidence. I would hope that any Prime Minister would be concerned, and that member should understand that when it comes to the RCMP, it is an independent organization, and the decision to launch the investigation was made by the RCMP alone. As the Director of Public Prosecution of Canada confirmed last week, the decision to initiate the investigation, lay charges, stay the charges were made independently without political interference. The member might want to listen to what's being said out there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
the minister may want to actually think about what actually happened here, and that it was the Prime Minister who demanded the investigation to find a scapegoat for his cabinet leaks. On 2 occasions, the Prime Minister stated publicly that Vice Admiral Norman would be charged even before the charges were laid and the investigation was complete. We now know that the Liberals withheld evidence from the RCMP, the public prosecutor, and Norman's defense team. Vice Admiral Norman deserves better than this kind of treatment from the Liberals. Why are the Liberals tarnishing the great reputation of Vice Admiral Norman just to protect this Prime Minister?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
As the honourable member well knows, the RCMP is an independent body and chooses to investigate and gather evidence on its own, independent of government sources. With respect to documents, Mr. Speaker, our government fulfilled all requests to the court for third-party records applications. In fact, we put together a process with the court to ensure that those documents could be identified and then screened, Mr. Speaker, ultimately by the judge in question. And so we fulfilled all our obligations, and we were cited by the court, Mr. Speaker, for having done so.
The
Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the true story is that the Prime Minister wanted to do whatever it took to find a scapegoat to blame the leaks on the Davy matter. Twice the Prime Minister stated publicly that Vice Admiral Norman would be charged before the investigation even wrapped up. And worse still, the Prime Minister said that the RCMP had acted independently when they actually hid their evidence. Will the Prime Minister admit that his behavior is worthy of a police state? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. As we have said, the member should know that all actions taken by the PPSC are taken independently. And if he doesn't think so, perhaps he should take a law course on the topic. As the director said last week, no other factors were taken into consideration. There was no outside contact or influence, including political influence, in the initial decision to prosecute Vice Admiral Norman or to stay the prosecution. Mr. Speaker, the opposition knows full well that all these statements are absolutely absurd. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I have no lesson to take from the Parliamentary Secretary. And just as in SNC-Lavalin, they think that they have something about the law to teach us. The Globe and Mail wasn't inventing this morning when it wrote on the first pages this morning that the Prime Minister, in the middle of a temper tantrum worthy of a spoiled brat, ordered the RCMP to investigate Norman. It's pretty serious when the Prime Minister can say, I'm angry, you have to do what I say to the RCMP. Mr. Speaker, why is it that the Liberals have refused? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Order, please. Mr. Speaker. The member opposite knows full well that committees work independently of government. Now, he's talking about lessons. Well, let's talk about lessons. Mr. Speaker, remember the fighter jets when the former government had 2 series of numbers, one for the public and one for themselves? They're talking about transparency, Mr. Speaker. How could they talk about transparency? We follow the process. We respect the judicial process in this country. We respect our legal institutions, and will continue to do that.
The cost to taxpayers to the Phoenix disaster is as high as $2.6 billion, and it won't be scrapped until 2023. Meanwhile, tens and thousands of workers continue to have their lives disrupted. My constituents call the Pay Center, and we're told that they can't help them. The minister told MPs to bring cases to her office directly. Well, we have done that and got nowhere. Budget 2019 won't fix this dumpster fire. More resources will be needed to fix this ongoing debacle. In what world is this an acceptable way to treat workers?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Service.
Well, of course, Mr. Speaker, we were left with the utter debacle
of the Phoenix pay system, 700 public servants summarily dismissed, shameful, millions and tens of millions of dollars cut from the federal budget to pay our public servants. This government is committed entirely to paying our public servants on time and accurately. That's why we've put in place the technological, human, and other resources necessary to do it. That has yielded an approximate one-third reduction in the amount of transactions that are in the backlog, and we will continue to work without fail until we get that down to zero.
The honourable member for Vancouver East.
Help, Mr. Speaker. Jack Layton's Climate Change Accountability Act was passed in this House not once but twice before it was killed by the unelected and unaccountable Senate. And former MP Megan Leslie was advocating for a Green New Deal to avert climate disaster 10 years ago. When the NDP asked the Minister of Environment to do more on the climate emergency, her response, "I don't get it." The minister from Strathcona, Edmonton, has tabled an environmental bill of rights for all Canadians. We have 11 years to act. Will the Prime Minister support the NDP's environmental bill of rights?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, I for her question and for the NDP's interest in putting forward a climate plan. However, it's interesting that over the past 3 years, they seem not to have been paying attention to the measures that we are implementing. The Pan-Canadian Framework on Climate Change includes over 50 measures that's going to help bring our emissions down. We've put a price on pollution that's going to put more money in the pockets of families. We've made the largest investment in the history of public transit, and by 2030, 90% of our electricity will be generated from clean resources. Mr. Speaker, with respect to the honourable member's question, we look forward to all kinds of new ideas, and I'd be happy to discuss with her the next steps when it comes to considering an environmental bill of rights.
The honourable member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Lévesque. Mr. Speaker, just allow me to recap. Shortly after the 2015 election, the Liberals strutted around Paris in a lovely public relations exercise, but back in Canada, it's another story. They're maintaining the Conservative insufficient targets that they won't even reach. They're putting a price on carbon, yes, but they're exempting the largest emitters. They bought a $4.5 billion pipeline, and this year they're going to give more than $3 billion in subsidies to the oil and gas industry, and they have the nerve to vote against a motion that proposes concrete actions and instead propose a motion that only pays lip service. When are they going to stop taking Canadians for fools? Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member, and in fact the entire NDP, has good intentions when it comes to climate change, but the question just put on the floor of the House of Commons demonstrate that they don't bring the thoughtfulness required to develop policy that's actually going to meaningfully reduce our emissions. For example, he's just cited the fact that big emitters are somehow exempt from our plan. Let me be unequivocal on this point. Big emitters are going to pay a price on pollution, and that is why families will be better off, and 8 out of 10 will have more money in their pockets at the end of the day. With respect to the motion that he's just referred to, they've called for the immediate end to all fossil fuel subsidies. Had they consulted with Indigenous people, they would have realized it would leave.
The honourable member for Rimouski-Nejet-Témiscouata-Lévesque. On another topic, Mr. Speaker, a third of the municipalities in my riding, 13 out of 39, have little or no cell coverage. While big cities are salivating at the idea of soon getting 5G, regions are still fighting to have access to 3G. In Budget 2019, there are funds for high-speed internet. Great. But once again, zip for cell coverage. And that's not the first time we've raised this issue. The Liberals persist in avoiding that question each time. I'm talking about cell phone coverage, not high speed. Why do the Liberals treat people in the regions like second-class citizens? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague for the question. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank also the member from Pontiac who raised this important issue in his motion M208, which this whole House supported. Mr. Speaker, we know it's important for rural communities to have access to broadband and cell phone coverage. It's a safety issue. It's an economic issue. With our fall economic statement, we made sure that through the accelerated capital cost allowance, there are telcos who are investing in cell phone coverage. We will continue to do everything we can to make sure that Canadians have that access. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Haldimand-Norfolk.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when the former Attorney General spoke truth to power and refused to allow the law to be broken, she was fired. But when Ben Chin abused his position of power to inappropriately put pressure on that same Attorney General, he was given a promotion. When CBC reporter James Cudmore was revealed to be at the center of the Norman scandal, he got a job with the Minister of Defence. Now, why is it that this Liberal government punishes those who tell the truth and promotes those who try to cover it up.
Oh, good.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it seems like the member is finally, the Conservatives have woken up and realized that it's important that we talk about jobs. Let's talk about jobs, Mr. Speaker. This government has been investing in Canadians in skills development. And by investing in Canadians and in communities across this country, Canadians have created over 1 million jobs. Mr. Speaker, we're talking about almost 4 years in government, and we have been able to, by actually having better relationships with provinces and municipalities, investing in infrastructure, investing in Canadians, lowering taxes on middle-class Canadians, lowering taxes on small businesses.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister continues to prove that he doesn't care about right or wrong as long as he gets his way. When he tried to interfere in the criminal prosecution of SNC-Lavalin, his Attorney General got in the way, so he fired her. Ben Chin was one of the Prime Minister's conspirators in his attempt to undermine justice. He got a promotion. The message is clear. If you do the PM's dirty work, you get rewarded. What self-respecting parliamentarian would tolerate and defend, Mr. Speaker, defend this corruption?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I was proud to be elected to represent the good people in the riding of Waterloo to ensure that in government and in the House of Commons, we represented the voices of Canadians. Under 10 years of Stephen Harper's, Canadians became tired of only Conservatives being represented. But what we did is we made a commitment to ensure that all voices would be represented. And by ensuring that we work with all Canadians from coast to coast to coast, today we have an economy that is working. That economy by Canadians have created over 1 million jobs. Today we have almost 300,000 children lifted out of poverty because of the tax-free Canada Child benefit. Over 800,000 Canadians better off today, but, Mr. Speaker... Sorry.
The Honourable Member for Beauport, Côte-de-Beaupré, Île d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, instead of a lackluster record of a few achievements over the past 4 years, the Prime Minister is actually collecting scandals and shameful behaviour on the part of his close circle. By promoting Ben Chin, who tried to circumvent the rule of law in the SNC-Lavalin scandal, the Prime Minister is confirming that he approves this kind of absolutely unacceptable behaviour. How can the Prime Minister justify to Canadians that this kind of behaviour deserves a promotion rather than a layoff? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, as I stated earlier, and I'll repeat it, our priority will always be Canadians. Those are the people we are here to work for. And that is why we have made investments. That is why we're working with provinces and communities. And with our investments, Canadians today have created more than 1 million jobs. That means there are more Canadians working today. And that is better for the economy because they will continue to invest and have better communities. The Conservatives don't have a plan. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, a key actor in the SNC-Lavalin scandal was a minister's chief of staff, and he also tried to do whatever he could to make the former Attorney General of Canada and her staff go against the law, and he unscrupulously threatened them. Mr. Speaker, the more crooked you are, the more likely you are to be promoted in the Liberal Party. Why does the Liberal government reward those who obstruct the legal process? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, what is clear is that the governments are engaged in petty politics because they don't have a plan for the economy. They don't have a plan for the environment. But on this side of the House, we're going to continue to work for Canadians. And we know that if we make investments and we work with Canadians, we are going to have a stronger economy. And that's exactly why Canadians have created more than 1 million jobs over the 4 years of our government. But the Conservatives were there for 10 years?
That economy is what they had.
The Honourable Member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Ben Chin tried to interfere with the justice system. He moved up to the Prime Minister's office. When the former Attorney General upheld the justice system, she was fired, booted out of caucus, and kicked out of the party. So for the Liberals, if you do the Prime Minister's dirty work, you get promoted. If you uphold the rule of law, you're out. Why don't the Liberals understand that this is wrong?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we have a justice system that's intact in Canada. We have offices of Parliament that we can have confidence in, as well as an independent judicial system. And what's clear is that we have confidence in those institutions, and that's what Canadians can also have confidence in. But unfortunately, the Conservatives will always undermine them, and they will continue to mislead Canadians. But let's talk about this fiscal situation we inherited when we took office 4 years ago. We had, under the Conservatives, the lowest growth since the Great Depression. But what we did is we worked with Canadians, we invested in Canadians, and guess what, Mr. Speaker? Canadians have created over 1 million jobs, better than advertised.
Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Well, let's talk about job losses under the Liberals. Here's the facts. The SNC-Lavalin scandal resulted in the firing of 2 respected and competent ministers. The SNC-Lavalin scandal resulted in the resignation of 2 top advisors to the Prime Minister. Long before these terminations and resignations, Ben Chin, the Finance Minister's Chief of Staff, was attempting to undermine the independence of our justice system. So, was Ben Chin fired or forced to resign? No. He was promoted to the Prime Minister's office. How is it even possible that Chin gets promoted and cabinet ministers get fired?
Good question. The Honourable Government House Leader.
We've just seen now 6 questions in a row, and what do the Conservatives do? The Conservatives sling mud and they focus on us. But Mr. Speaker, what will we do? We will focus on Canadians. And that's exactly why, by focusing on Canadians, lowering taxes on middle-class Canadians, increasing them on the wealthiest 1% of Canadians, Canadians are better off today than they were under 10 years of Stephen Harper. By bringing forward the tax-free Canada Child Benefit, almost 300,000 children lifted out of poverty, over 800,000 Canadians better off today than they were under 10 years of Stephen Harper. And guess what, Mr. Speaker? That's because we will continue to work for Canadians, focus on Canadians. Those benefits.
Honourable Member for Esquimalt, Saanich Sooke.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear now that there are 2 keys to ending the HIV/AIDS epidemic. Everyone knowing their status, and those who are HIV positive having access to treatment. Yet many Canadians still lack access to both testing and treatment. Following up on a question I asked the Prime Minister last December, and in view of the imminent Health Canada approval of new home testing kits and point-of-care kits, will the government commit today to a well-funded federal program to make those new testing options available to every Canadian, including those in rural, remote, and Indigenous communities?
Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is deeply committed to addressing HIV/AIDS and supporting the Canadians who live with it. That's why we're investing $87 million annually to tackle it, and we're the first country in the world to support the principle that undetectable is the same as untransmittable. We remain committed to expanding access to antiretroviral drugs and other crucial medications that help address HIV. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
La députée de Laurier.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie.
Say the right thing and do nothing about it, government is at it again. Il y a 3 ans, Steve.
3 years ago, Stéphane Dion, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, announced with great fanfare during an event sponsored by my colleague from Windsor-Tecumseh that Canada would be signing the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture. That was in 2016, and we're now in 2019. Nothing.
The government at long last walk the talk and ratify the protocol, or is it only for show, as usual?
The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Our government has been unequivocal in our stance on human rights, Mr. Speaker. They are an integral part of our foreign policy because they are an integral part of who we are as Canadians. We use every opportunity to promote and protect the fundamental freedoms enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Canadians can be proud of the strong principles our government has taken in promoting and protecting human rights at home and abroad.
Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, 4 years ago, the Conservative government announced the creation of an Afghanistan war monument to mark the service and sacrifice of Canadians in the longest engagement our forces have been in. The Liberals cancelled that project. This week, the government quietly announced an Afghanistan memorial that's not even accessible to the public. The families of the fallen have to book an appointment to see it, Mr. Speaker. Will the Minister of Veterans Affairs apologize to Afghanistan families, to military families, for failing them once again?
Yes. The Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of National Defence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And we truly appreciate the service of our men and women in Afghanistan over several years. The monument is for the soldiers and is open to families upon request. And the government also foresees the construction of a monument that will be open to the public. We are planning that. Once again, we have the greatest respect for our men and women, including those who served in Afghanistan and our various missions abroad. We will make sure that that monument is accessible to the public and families.
Mr. Speaker, when the Liberal government cancelled plans for the Afghanistan War Memorial, the MP for Canada Carleton, a veteran herself, promised a new monument would be built quickly and would be accessible to Canadians. This week we see that despite 4 years, Mr. Speaker, she broke her promise to veterans yet again. Will the Public Safety Parliamentary Secretary, the MP for Canada Carleton, stand in this House and apologize to Afghanistan veterans for failing them to deliver this monument over the last 4 years?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. To commemorating the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces and all those who made the ultimate sacrifice is absolutely critical, and we support that. And that is why we will be building the monument in question. And it will reflect the needs of the communities, the veterans, and the Canadian public, as well as the families. Veterans and their families will be invited at the appropriate time to visit this beautiful monument that will be available to everyone in
Melville.
On Monday, a secret dedication service was held for the Afghanistan Memorial Hall tucked away in National Defense Headquarters. The public was not invited and are not allowed to visit in the future. Veterans and families of the fallen were shut out of this ceremony. What a despicable lack of respect for those who made the ultimate sacrifice on the battlefields of Afghanistan. Afghan veterans and veterans' families want to know which of the last 4 ministers of Veterans Affairs let them down, or was it all of them?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs. Mr. Speaker, our government puts above all the importance of all those who served here and abroad. We are not playing politics with our veterans. The monument will be built, the commemoration will happen, families will have access. And Mr. Speaker, I can assure you that we hold dear the commemoration of this monument that is so important to everyone.
They've had 4 years to get this right, and in another shocking display of disrespect towards our veterans, the Liberals refuse to invite Canadian soldiers who put their lives on the line in Afghanistan or families of Canadians who died for our country to the dedication of the memorial. No one even knew about it until it was posted on Facebook 3 days ago. Even worse, the memorial is, get this, not open to the public or families of the fallen without an appointment. Our families of Canadian soldiers who died in Afghanistan not entitled to a public memorial, or does the Prime Minister consider that more than he can give them right now?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as we have just said, we are in the planning stages of this memorial. And I think it's rather strange that the opposition is talking about the veterans. They forgot about them for 10 years. They closed veterans' offices. They cut the assistance to veterans. They cut in the Department of Defense. So how can they rise in this House and claim to defend veterans when they neglected them for 10 years? We will always defend them, and we will build that memorial that will be open to the public, veterans, and families of those veterans.
For Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals promised to do politics differently, but on the ground for many seniors, life is still unaffordable. Yes, it's positive that we have a Minister of Seniors, but people in my community still can't afford to pay for the care they need as they age. We must do better for people who built this country. The GIS increase is a small drop in the bucket, and many people never see that increase, and Saskatoon seniors are struggling. Will the government ensure that seniors in Saskatoon can afford the care they need to age with dignity? Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Seniors.
Values the contributions that our seniors have made and continue to make to our communities. We have taken action to combat seniors' poverty since the day we got elected. Budget 2019 supports low-income seniors who work by increasing earnings exemption for the GIS from $3,500 to $5,000. We've restored the age of eligibility for OAS and GIS to 65, preventing 100,000 people from falling into poverty, and we increased the GIS to the most vulnerable single seniors to up to almost $1,000 more a year, and that's helping 900,000 seniors. In fact, in my riding alone, that's 4,000 seniors receiving that increase.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, thousands of public sector employees are still living with the aftermath of the Phoenix fiasco and Liberal inaction. Yesterday, the Parliamentary Budget Officer said that replacing the system would cost less than fixing it. The pathetic management of this file by the Liberal government is insulting for workers in the public service. Mr. Speaker, why are they so stubborn? When will this government put an end to the Phoenix scandal? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are working flat out, and we stand in solidarity with the employees who have been hurt by this system that was bequeathed to us by the Harper government. On our part, we will put the necessary resources in to fix a system that the Conservatives did not want to pay for adequately. Mr. Speaker, last Wednesday, the Prime Minister announced a new process for Supreme Court appointments. This process will allow Quebec to participate fully. Can the Prime Minister or the Minister of Justice inform the House of this new process and how it differs from previous processes? The Honourable Minister of Justice. We came to a historical memorandum of understanding with the Quebec government. This will be in order to honour the province's unique and historic legal system. It also reflects the commitment of the government to do things in a consultative way when filling Supreme Court positions. Mr. Speaker, with this agreement, we have settled a historic matter with Quebec.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Victoria Day long weekend, as people in my province of Saskatchewan are driving to the lake, they are going to be paying higher gas prices thanks to the Liberals' cash-grabbing carbon tax. The Liberal carbon tax, as we know, is a plan to fight carbon change. Absolutely not. This is a tax grab. All it does is make life more expensive for hardworking Canadians. When will the Liberal government support Canadians and cancel once and for all this carbon tax?
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, I would have to point out that the honourable member seems confused. The province of British Columbia simply does not have the federal system apply, and in fact, the BC government's plan to price pollution has added 1 cent to the cost of gas in that province. With respect, Mr. Speaker, in provinces where our plan applies, I direct the honourable member to read the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report that confirms 8 out of 10 families will have more money in their pockets at the end of the year as a result of our plan that will also reduce emissions. If he's finally concerned about affordability, Mr. Speaker, I'd invite his constituents to write him and ask why he opposed the increase of the Canada Child Benefit, why he opposed the tax cut for middle-class families, and why he opposed support for low-income seniors.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, British Columbia is drowning under the highest gas prices on the continent, and this Liberal government simply does not care. Because of this government's failure to expand pipeline access from Alberta, BC must buy American gasoline at a premium. This is unacceptable in a country rich in energy like ours. BC needs the pipeline, and it needs it now. When will this government do the bare minimum, Mr. Speaker, to support BC and approve this desperately needed pipeline?
Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, since day one, our government has taken action to support our energy sector and the jobs it creates by making market access a priority. The Conservatives spent a decade failing our energy sector and failing Canadians. We are working each day to fix those failures. We are taking action now and making sure good projects move forward, create jobs for Canadians, and grow our economy. This is what Canadians deserve. Our government approved the Line 3 replacement project. We have always supported Keystone, but we are moving forward on TMX in the right way through meaningful consultation, something that is not even an idea for the Conservatives. Thank you.
Honourable member for Caribou Prince George.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has just awarded a former Tides Canada executive
a position in his office as Director of Policy. Tides poured millions into targeted campaigns aimed at influencing the 2015 election. Tides created and funded the tar sands campaign aimed entirely at shutting down Canada's oil and gas industry. Tides has funded organizations that have waged war against Canada's forestry, fishing, and agriculture industries. Mr. Speaker, Tides has funded comprehensive and targeted campaign aimed at discrediting and shutting down Canada's natural resource sectors. Wow. Who does the Prime Minister work for? Canadians or his foreign-funded friends?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Speaker, it's quite clear that we're working for Canadians. We created over 1 million jobs, lifted 300 kids out of poverty, and we're continuing to work for Canadians. We've approved the Line 3 project. We are supportive of Keystone, and we're working on TMX in the right way, something that the Conservatives obviously are not even in the way that they operate. For them, negotiating or actually having consultation with the Indigenous peoples is not even a thought, actually a suggestion. For us, making sure that we're working for Canadians in the right way is a priority of ours. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Lakeland.
But, Mr. Speaker, for years, these Liberals have hired anti-energy chiefs of staff and policy advisors in the Minister offices of Natural Resources, Environment, and others. And now the Prime Minister just appointed a former Vice President of Tides Canada as his own Director of Policy. The Tides Foundation helps run the anti-oil sands campaign. One group they funded says, quote, from the very beginning, the strategy was to landlock Canadian oil. With nearly 200,000 Canadian oil and gas workers out of their jobs and 2 cancelled pipelines under these Liberals, obviously it's working. Why on earth is this Prime Minister helping foreign-funded activists shut down Canadian energy?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Speaker, that is further from the truth. We've actually approved the Line 3 project. We're supportive of Keystone, and we are moving forward on TX in the right way. We have 8 teams on the ground right now, making sure that we're properly consulting with the Indigenous people, something that, again, the Conservatives, for them, it's only a suggestion. They don't realize that this is a legal obligation that they have. We take our obligations very seriously. That is what Canadians deserve, and that is what we're delivering. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, public servants across the country have been suffering under the Phoenix pay system fiasco since its inception. People have been underpaid, overpaid, not paid at all, and T4s are inaccurate, creating a whole host of nightmares with the Canada Revenue Agency. This has been widely acknowledged by the government, but what's actually happening to support federal employees suffering under Phoenix? Constituents like Mr. Forrester Stone in my riding want to know, why are they still receiving the same responses about unknown timelines with no resolution in sight to resolving their pay issues?
Secretary to the Minister of Public Services.
Mr. Speaker, of course we are in complete solidarity with public servants who are laboring and suffering under the Harper-inspired Phoenix pay system, where they cut 700 qualified public servants, cut tens of millions of dollars in phony savings, and left us without an alternative pay system. We are, of course, moving to develop a new next generation pay system. We have opened a client contact center, which is experiencing high levels of customer satisfaction, and we are, of course, going to continue to get those transactions down, Mr. Speaker, and get to zero.
The Honourable Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, we have a climate crisis before us, with current global warming trends predicting a global increase of between 3 to 5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Canada's youth are looking to us, the elected officials, to embrace the crisis that's putting their futures in jeopardy with the same urgency that they are feeling. The government claims to understand that there's a climate emergency, but they refuse to debate the issue today, and they voted against the NDP's motion earlier this week. When will the government put some action behind their words and treat this crisis with the urgency that it deserves?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Speaker, the fact is climate change is real, the consequences are serious, and we are facing an emergency today. We don't need to look to the end of the century to understand that people are feeling the consequences in our community. We can look at storm surges on the East Coast, floods in New Brunswick, heat waves in Quebec and Ontario, forest fires in the West, and glacial melt in the North. We are feeling the impacts today, and it is costing us dearly. Mr. Speaker, we have put forward a plan with more than 50 concrete measures that's going to bring our emissions down, strengthen communities, make life more affordable, and do right for the next generation. With respect to the NDP's motion, there were fatal flaws to it because they did not do their homework and understand that the consequences would shut off electricity to Indigenous.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the government's management of the crisis with China is a complete shambles. The Agriculture Minister is improvising and more producers are affected. We had canola, pork, and now we've learned that Chinese authorities have halted 2 shipments of soybeans. So this market is still not accessible. And what about the advance payment program? Producers need it now. When will the government stand up to defend Canadian producers? Mr. Speaker, we are with our canola producers and all producers, and we've been with them since the beginning. We have been taking action. I was in the prairies. I met with my colleagues in the provinces. We came up with a working group with industry, with farmers. I've had discussions with my Chinese counterpart. We have brought in an advance payment system, which is very generous, more generous. And my colleague, the Minister for International Trade, is working on diversification. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, on Tuesday, the Auditor General told the Public Accounts Committee that as a result of inadequate funding, quote, we have no choice but to decrease the number of performance audits. Yesterday, the President of the Treasury Board refused to commit to provide the necessary resources to the Auditor General so that he can do his job. So I'll give her another chance today. Will she commit today, now, to provide the Office of the Auditor General the $10.8 million that they requested? Yes or no?
Parliamentary Secretary to the President of the Treasury Board.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to working with and supporting the Auditor General as we would support all officers of the Parliament of Canada. When an officer of Parliament, such as the Auditor General, identifies a need for additional resources, we consider such a request quite seriously, and to ensure that that office and all offices of agents of Parliament can continue their important work on behalf of the Canadian people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Calgary, Rocky Ridge.
Well, that sounded an awful lot like no. On Tuesday, we learned that the cancelled audits included cybercrime, Arctic sovereignty, public service training, heritage services, and the government's travel system. The Auditor General said that these were important areas that needed to be audited. One can imagine what these audits would reveal if they were completed. We know that this government prefers cover-ups to accountability, but stopping the Auditor General from doing his job is inexcusable. Why are they so afraid of accountability?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. le Président, encore.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I will repeat that our government is completely supporting parliamentary officers. We take their work very seriously, and an officer of Parliament, like the Auditor General, identifies a problem, it's something we take very seriously, and we will continue to do so.
North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, for months the Leader of the Opposition has been vague about the Conservative plan. This week we heard the so-called details, and they're terrifying. He wants to mix the worst of Harper with the worst of Ford. He says his cuts won't hurt kids or families, but as we're seeing in Ontario, when Conservatives make such promises, middle-class families suffer. Could the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families please tell this House how this government has indeed helped families in the middle class to prosper? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. When it comes to Conservatives, they have a lot of silly slogans and they amuse themselves with stickers and all kinds of little cartoons. But the reality is, when it comes to children, the Ford government has declared war on Ontario's children. The cuts to stem cell research yesterday are absolutely appalling and put at risk premature babies. It's a wrong cut. It's a bad cut. But it layers on top of the cuts to vaccines, the cuts to school lunch programs, the cuts to libraries, the cuts to education. When the Conservatives talk about children, what they don't tell you is that they're coming for your kid. They're coming to hurt your kid, to cut services for your kid. They just don't care. When it comes to Ford's cuts, they are #.
The Honourable Member for Calgary, Shepherd. Order.
The Liberals' one-size-fits-all mortgage stress test has blocked 147,000 Canadians from the dream of home ownership. To fix their big government mistake, they're proposing a big government solution in shared equity mortgages. The Finance Department claims up to 100,000 Canadians will be helped. They said the CMHC told them so. The CMHC says the department gave them that number. The CMHC boss says this program will work on the margins. Liberal MPs keep claiming it'll be transformational. Will the Liberals admit that when it comes to housing affordability, that they're making it up as they go along and young Canadian families are paying the price?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the issues that young people are facing, they certainly don't look to the Conservatives for solutions. After 10 years, we saw what that meant. When it comes to housing affordability, all the Conservatives want to do is allow young people and families and first-time home ownership opportunities to take on more debt. What we're committed to is actually allowing more people to get into the housing market and making their monthly costs actually go down, increasing affordability for Canadians so they have more money to spend on things that matter like their families and making sure that they can invest in communities. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives have no plan. We continue.
The Honourable Member,
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Mr. Speaker, the Ford government early this week announced that they are cutting funding for the Ontario Institute for Regenerative Medicine. This institute funded research into many debilitating and fatal illnesses and a mission to advance important stem cell research. While the Ford government continues Harper's war on science, our government is taking action. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Science and Sport tell this House about our commitment to science and research? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Once again, this is a Conservative politician trying to shut down discovery that has long-term benefits. We've seen this before, 10 years of cuts, muzzling of scientists, and overall mismanagement by the Harper Conservatives had researchers protesting on Parliament Hill. Our government, unlike the previous government and the Ford government, actually believes in science, research, and evidence-based decision-making. We are the government that has invested over $10 billion into research, and we will continue to support our researchers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Under the Liberal government, many Canadian families who are adopting children abroad face long delays with zero transparency on their case. For example, after initially being told by the Liberals that the process would take 2 weeks, the Moran family have been separated for 9 months. They were just told it could be as long as another year before a decision is made with no reason given as to why. Will the minister agree to meet with the Morans and explain to them why they can't get a straight answer?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Mr. Speaker, this House, this government has taken historic measures to reunite families, and it's a little rich for the member opposite whose party had two options when dealing with files, pressing the delete button or the alt-right button. It's a disgrace for the member opposite to stand up and talk about family reunification. This government that has made historic investments in budget 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016 to make sure that people are welcome in Canada, immigration files are processed in a systematic fashion. Of course, there are extremely complex files, and then the element that the member mentioned is a very, very particular file. We are glad to take it on.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, this week, Quebec witnessed a really distasteful kind of vaudeville with respect to the Highway 19 extension. Now, people in my riding have been waiting for this extension for years. But the thing is, it's Quebec who's in charge of highways, not Ottawa. Not 1 centimetre of this highway will be paved without Quebec. Why does the Minister for Infrastructure, why did he organize a press conference in Quebec, but without Quebec's participation? Is this because of the election? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I respect my colleague, but how can you claim to work for Quebecers and be against a historic investment of this kind? You have to be a member of the Bloc Québécois to be against Quebecers. Since 1976, they've wanted this. Yes, we're investing in Highway 19, and we are funding the extension. All the mayors were there. Here, we are a government that keeps its word. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Well, I think the interest of Quebec means respecting agreements with Quebec. And the agreement on infrastructure is clear. Canada's role is limited to financial contribution, period. It does not take part in the various stages of construction. But Ottawa can do two things if they want to respect Quebec. One, sign the checks. Two, get out of the way. Quebec wants Ottawa to transfer unconditionally and in a lump sum the money for infrastructure. So rather than creating fights, will the Minister of Infrastructure simply send the check? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, what a show. What a show for the cameras. I think respecting Quebecers means more than asking 2 questions a week. Now imagine the people watching us at home. You have a member of the Bloc Québécois who is against the decongestion of traffic in Montreal. We're happy to invest this money in partnership with the Quebec government, in partnership with the municipalities, creating jobs. We're going to continue to invest in Quebec because that's what respect for Quebecers is. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, this is truly a distasteful spectacle. We know that Vice Admiral Norman was both a victim of Conservative pettiness and Liberal incompetence. Conservatives have hidden the fact that they asked him to talk to Davy Shipyards about the Astérix in order to continue their partisan attacks to his and the company's detriment. And the Liberals weren't any better. They sent this file on to the police, and this without checking the facts. The entire Canadian establishment, I think, is to blame. Will the government launch a public investigation with respect to the Norman case?
L'Honorable Ministre de la Justice.
The Honourable Minister of Justice, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member knows that the RCMP conducts its own investigations completely independently of the government, and it will deal with the Director of Public Prosecutions, and this, again, is completely independent of the government. If the Honourable Member has information, he should provide it to the RCMP.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question, Minister of Environment. We have a very important agreement and a full credit to the federal government, the government of BC, as well as an Indigenous partnership to protect an iconic species, the southern mountain caribou. I'm afraid, Mr. Speaker, I'm hearing reports that the consultations, the BC government seems to be stirring up opposition to protecting the species instead of solidifying what is a groundbreaking model agreement. I wonder if the federal government is concerned, as I am, that we not let this deal get unstuck.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member from Saanich Gulf Islands, and I'd like to remind this House that it's Endangered Species Day and that our world is facing a global crisis when it comes to the protection of our wildlife. Since the 1970s, we have seen 60% of our wildlife disappear, including iconic species in Canada. With respect to the southern mountain caribou, we have seen local population units that have been around for thousands of years wiped off the face of the planet forever. Mr. Speaker, we have achieved a groundbreaking conservation agreement with the province of British Columbia and the Saulteaux and West Moberly First Nations. We are intending to keep our commitments that we've made, but we want to work with communities to ensure that we do so in a way that respects their way of life and local economies, but we simply cannot let this iconic species disappear from our great country. Thank you.
That brings question period to an end for today.
Le dépôt du document. Introduction of government bills. Dépôt de projet de loi émanant du gouvernement. Statements by ministers. Déclaration de ministre. Reports from interparliamentary delegations. The Honourable Member for Kenora.
Pursuant to Standing Order 34.1, I have the honour to present to the House in both official languages 2 reports of the Canadian section of Parliamericas respecting its participation at the bilateral visit to Mexico held in Mexico City from February 10th to the 12th, 2019. And Mr. Speaker, as well, the 47th Board of Directors meeting and the 4th gathering of Parlamerica's Open Parliamentary Network held in Quito, Ecuador from March 11th to 14th, 2019. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees, the Honourable Member for Cambridge.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have the honor to present in both official languages the 17th report of the Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills and Social Development and the Status of Persons with Disabilities, entitled Labour Shortages and Solutions in the DTHA Construction Industry.